we said fintech has got bank tech, health tech, tech, and tech tech. We covered some of that. So what we're going to do is to finish that and then go into the technologies. We already covered some of these technologies. Can you see the screen now?
Yes,
sir.
PPT, okay. So we are talking about wealth tech. There were questions about NFTs and things like that. So we will talk about cryptocurrencies here, but then you have a separate session on cryptocurrencies and blockchain, etc., later in the program. So I'm going to just touch upon it and then tell you what is new and what is exciting about. Okay, so algo trading is actually bot trading using a robot to do the trading part. But then, I'll tell you how that differs from robot-based services shortly. Okay. Before that, we'll cover, or we'll do robot-based services. Okay. So what is robo-advisory services? It is basically using a robot, which is basically a software program, right? Instead of a portfolio manager. For example, you live in Bombay and then you go to a portfolio manager and say, boss, I want my portfolio managed. Unless you have 20 crores, he's not even going to touch you with a barge pole because, it's not profitable for these portfolio management companies to manage portfolios of small sizes. Suppose what if my salary is like 2 lakhs, 1 lakh, whatever, right? So, so how do I, access portfolio services? It is just not possible. And see, this is again a financial inclusion thing. Okay. So how do we provide high quality portfolio services, portfolio management services to a set of participants who don't have too much to invest? Okay. So this is really the idea of portfolio robot-based services. So instead of a human being doing this for you, a software program will do the advice. Meaning, so you go to the robot-based services website. There are companies like Betterment in the US, and there are a lot of companies. I'll show you some of them, later in India. So you go to the website, and then fill in, for example, the kind of portfolio you want, depending on your age, your investment goals. So you fill in all those things. So the difference is, suppose you're newly married, and then your husband or wife is also working, and then you have no children, and then you can take higher risks. So you can invest in equities and cryptocurrencies and things like that. But if you're about to retire and then you have a daughter to be married off, and then your wife is not working probably, then you have a house, you have a loan against that. So then your situation is very different from the earlier situation. So you need a different portfolio, right? So all of us have investments, to make, but then so depending on that, the portfolio managers usually create a portfolio for you. And then keep adjusting it, etc. Now, the problem with human portfolio managers is that they're very expensive. They charge you 2%, 3% commission, and then they keep trading. And then your trading cost, your transaction costs increase dramatically, actually. So what the robot digital services does is, you go and fill up a form, state your investment, and then leave it to the computer. It will create a portfolio for you, a standard portfolio. 20% equity, 30% bonds, and whatever, right? So it does that, and then we do what is known as passive advisory service. It's not an active portfolio management. Passive. Well, you don't touch the portfolio. End of the year, you rebalance the portfolio because by the time the prices would have changed, so you need to readjust. So that you get the same allocation, asset allocation. So that is what it's called automatic portfolio rebalance. So these computer programs can actually do that. And they charge you an annual fee. That's all. That's the flat fee, $500, $2,000, whatever. It's a very minimal fee because it doesn't cost them much actually. So this is actually picked up a lot. And this has brought the people who are originally not included into the portfolio management system so that they can also benefit from the stock market. So that is, there are several robot-based services companies, and even the traditional robot-based services, traditional investment banks have come into this business. So instead of you using software to trade, algo trading is only for traders. people who are well versed with the market, etc. So Robo digital services is actually for people who don't know about finance, but then they want a trusted entity which will not charge them. That's really the Robo digital service thing. Okay. Now, crowdfunding is an interesting idea because there are a lot of websites that are sprung up. This is actually the equivalent of P2B lending. What you do is instead of going to a bank and running around for a loan, etc., you go to this website. For example, there are sites like Indiegogo in the US, for example, Kickstarter. Especially if you're an entrepreneur, you don't have, say, any asset to show to the bank, collateral. Then you can go to these websites and put up details of your project, and then say, okay, you want money, right? So interested people will actually fund. There are cases where entrepreneurs have raised millions of dollars in a matter of minutes. 5 minutes, people have raised $1 million, etc. Because the idea is good. A lot of people. So also, advantage is that you're not raising money from one angel investor who will want 20%, 30% equity in your firm. Then he will start controlling you, etc. This equity is spread out over thousands of people, so nobody has control. Okay? And then there are a lot of different forms of crowdfunding. For example, you can offer equity. By the way, India, this is not allowed. You cannot offer equity because you need to get SEBI's approval and things like that. So equity you cannot do. But then you can raise money for other things. For example, somebody is ill. Somebody wants money for cancer treatment. A lot of websites are there. Impact Guru and Kettle and several other websites are there in India today. About 10, 20, 30 companies are there. So where you can raise money for educational loans or even for cause. For example, I want to build a library in a particular place, a small town, and in the name of my grandfather or whatever. So I can raise money for that, and people are willing to give you money. Then second thing, it is not just equity. You can even take debt, loan, for example, and then build it and return the money. Or you can even say, for example, pre-sell the product. You're creating a product, and then you want to take money from people and then send them the product as a compensation. And because you want to make a movie, for example, you want to create social awareness, a movie against smoking, child marriage, whatever. If you want to do things like that, crowdfunding is the best option because no company will give you money, no bank will give you money. They'll ask you some 1,000 questions and make you run around like crazy. This is like automatically within a few days, few minutes, you can actually raise money. So this is an alternative source of funding. See, this is also eating into the business for the banks, actually. Otherwise, you are forced to go to the bank. Now you don't have to go to the bank, right? So that's another important, way for entrepreneurs and social organizations to raise money. Okay, blockchain-based settlements. Now, the rest of the three blockchain cryptocurrencies. Let's talk about cryptocurrencies first, and then come back to blockchain. Cryptocurrencies. As I told you, there is a session on cryptocurrencies by someone else, later. So I'm sure they'll cover the whole thing. But I'm just giving you the gist of what cryptocurrency is because, and I can answer questions if necessary. Okay. So cryptocurrencies are cryptographically created, meaning crypto means secret, right? So cryptography is secret writing. Okay. So cryptocurrencies are actually created using cryptography. And the first cryptocurrency was called Bitcoin by someone called Nakamoto. We don't even know whether it's actually the name of the person or a group of people. So he created the world's first blockchain. Okay, so let me spend a couple of minutes on blockchain. Okay, what is a blockchain? Blockchain, we mentioned something earlier, right? So blockchain is actually a chain of blocks. Okay. So what is a block? Block is actually, think of a ledger that in finance, right? So you already know how a ledger looks like. Okay. Yeah, Nakamoto, Satoshi Nakamoto, that is. Well, there's a question. Is it really possible to factor in investor sentiments? I think we answered that actually. In algo trading, any mode of wealth tech, what are the variables? See, investor sentiments are actually, okay. There are two questions. One is, investor sentiment As a trader, you don't want to have sentiments. You have to be like a machine, and if you want to really make money, okay. But if you want to know what the other people are thinking, for example, there is without any fundamental change in the company's position, etc. Sometimes the stock value goes up just because of rumors and things like that. Sentiments. So we have sentiment analysis tools that can actually give you inputs on what is happening in the market. So technical indicators and things like that. You can even do machine learning and AI to understand. For example, your machine learning AI programs can take all the newspaper reports, Twitter tweets, and Facebook posts, etc., and then determine the sentiment about that particular stock, create a sentiment score, and then you can take that into account while trading. You can modify. So it is possible to actually take an algo trading device, and software, and then add your own customizations to possible. It is possible to do it. Actually. Another question about crowdfunding. Now, how are they vetting the requirements of the crowdfunding? For example, I'm raising money. How do you know, right? Yeah. So how do you know that borrower's credentials? See, these crowdfunding platforms do a very good job of vetting. So they'll ask you every question, and then they'll verify. Sometimes they do physical verification of your thing. They look at your product and things like that. So it is sort of vetted by them, and they look at your social media, you ask, make inquiries, and all that. They also use a lot of data to use that, but then it's not like a bank where they have a set criteria, etc. They leave it to the people. So it's not like one platform vetting you. 1,000 people who want to invest will also make own inquiries and things like that to find out. Okay, so you need to show a prototype, and then you need to show answer questions. You need to make a presentation, and thousands of people will ask you questions, and they'll find out actually whether you're good or not. Of course, there is always a risk, right? So in spite of all this, some investments will go bad, which is natural, right? That happens in the real world. So cryptocurrencies, we are talking about blocks. So I was telling you about ledgers. Okay, think of your regular ledger, debit, credit. All the transactions are actually written on a physical ledger, right? Now take that ledger and then put it on the internet. Okay. So what happens if you put it on the internet? So it becomes a distributed ledger. Okay, same ledger is now in the computers of say 10,000, 20,000 people across the world. China, Africa, wherever, right? So which means the advantage is that if somebody wants to change something in your computer, you cannot change it in 10,000 computers. Only then the change can. So that is why we call blockchain as immutable. Okay. So I'll go into this in the detail when we talk about blockchain again. But then blockchains are immutable. You cannot change it. And that's why you don't need trusted entity. I'll tell you how one block is connected to the other block. So I need to. But then all the stock market settlements, for example, Australian stock market exchanges are using blockchain-based settlements. So you can do settlements very easily without even having to trust the other party, because the trust is replaced by the technology. Now, cryptocurrencies are Bitcoin was the first cryptocurrency that ran on a blockchain. So Satoshi Nakamoto actually created this first blockchain, and then these blocks use something known as proof of work. I'll explain that later when we talk about it. So just now understand that cryptocurrencies are digital currencies. They don't need physical presence. They can be transferred without spending any transaction costs. No government, no authorities can prevent you from doing this, because it is all in the internet, and then it's never sleep. So of course, if you cut the internet connection, which is very difficult, right? So it's like trying to ban, for example, the government tried to ban pornographic sites, etc. Not possible. Okay. So cryptocurrencies are resistant to censorship, resistant to regulation, and so on. So that is why governments and central banks are worried about cryptocurrencies, and they're trying to malign cryptocurrencies by saying that they're all used for or ransom and illegal activities, etc. Of course, people have been using rupees for illegal activities for a long time. Nothing new in cryptocurrencies, right? So cryptocurrencies, whether we like it or not, is going to dominate. China is actually introducing a cryptocurrency, a state-supported cryptocurrency, digital yuan, which is going to be, they're testing it now. So it will be like, on the phone, you can actually make a payment just by taking your phone near the seller's phone in the shop. The money gets transferred. It's like very similar to Bluetooth. They use what is known as NFC, near field communications. And in fact, if you check your Android phone, you'll find along with Bluetooth, you'll find NFC. So you just switch on. So you don't need internet connection to transfer money, which is great. China is testing it. Once China comes, then US is working on its own digital dollars, and India is working on digital rupee. And there were 78 countries which are working on central bank digital currency. They call CBDCs. Okay, so that's going to be the norm. So there are a lot of implications of that, and so how that will work and things like that. So government authorization to cryptocurrencies in India will increase investor awareness in India. Now, the government is actually ambivalent. Okay? Government does not want to lose control. Not like the Indian government. All governments actually have the same problem. Okay? So they want control over money supply. Okay. Now, the people, for example, recently El Salvador in South America has declared Bitcoin as a legal currency. So what happens is, people who are, if your currency is not very strong and inflation is very high. See, for example, today, inflation is more than 5%, right? So if you go to a bank and put money in the bank, post-inflation, you're actually losing money. So if you save money in the bank, you'll become poorer, actually, India, right? So it's worse in Venezuela. It's very bad in other countries. So, but this is because the government can print notes. See, earlier, I would say 15 years ago, the government used to have gold as a reserve, the currency. Okay, so you need to have as much gold and then backed by the fiat currency. Now, gold backing the fiat currency. Now you don't have that standard. Okay, so if you want, you can just print notes and then give it to people, and then inflation goes up, and then people who are your savings value comes down and the prices go up and things like that. So this is what is happening in most places. So cryptocurrency is a hedge against inflation because it's globally determined. For example, Bitcoin, the total supply is already fixed. There can't be more than 21 million Bitcoins. So that's why supply is controlled algorithmically. Okay, so nobody's controlling it. It's already fixed. So that is the beauty of cryptocurrencies. We'll only keep appreciating. And a lot of government agencies in India, in UK, USA, they're all against cryptocurrencies because it is threatening to alter the entire governance system. But then from a people's point of view, you can reach millions of people who don't have bank accounts, and just with their phone, you can actually transact in currencies, you can pay for things, etc. Japan is actually taking the lead. There are so many shops in Japan where you can go eat something and then pay, or buy a shirt and then pay in cryptocurrencies. There are a lot of Switzerland, a lot of countries that are very crypto-friendly, and a lot of China and South Korea, India. They're all against cryptocurrencies, but then only time will tell. But then there is no dying of cryptocurrencies. Whether you like it or not, it is going to be there. I can answer specific questions if you have on this. Okay. So decentralized finance refers to financial services offered on a blockchain platform. If, for example, today we have centralized institutions like the RBI, like your bank, intermediaries, okay, who actually own everything. See, for example, you have I'm sending you money. Okay, my bank is telling me that the money is actually taken away from my account, but you are saying that you've not received. Now you have to go by what the bank is saying. But if you look at the bank, can you really trust the banks? For example, so many frauds happen in banks, and then 60 to 70% of the frauds are not even found out by the banks. Okay, so all these losses are actually incorporated and into the bank, and then you're paying money to the banks if you don't have minimum balance, and then the bank is using your money, and then they lend it to whoever they want, and the money doesn't come back. Then so this is the problem with centralized systems. Okay, it's censored. It is nobody knows what is happening, right? So which means that you need to trust people. In decentralized finance, you don't have to trust anybody because it's like you're dealing with a vending machine. Okay? The blockchain is there, everything is transparent. Okay? You can go to a blockchain using Block Explorer, you can see all the transactions. So you won't see the names, etc. Only the private public key will be available. But then you have an audit skill of things happening, etc. Where your money went, who spent, who sent it to whom, etc. It's all very transparent, open, always on. Even if there's an earthquake or this thing, anything happens, the entire chain will not go down because it is distributed across the world. So any financial services built on top of this blockchain is going to be very cheap, inexpensive because there are no intermediaries to pay, etc. There's a small, smart contract fee, etc. Now Ethereum gas charges are going up, but then there are a lot of other blockchains that are coming up. So decentralized finance is the future of financial services. Maybe in the next 5-10 years, you will start seeing a lot of these companies. So that's about. Okay, what about insurtech? So insurance is a very interesting industry. Actually, this is what is called phygital, meaning physical and digital. Because unlike bank payments, etc., you don't need physical presence, right? But insurance is not like that. Auto insurance. So somebody has to look at your car and then take photographs and things like that. So technology is being used in insurtech in different ways. For example, so I don't know if you can see this ring. My ring. This is called the Aura ring. OURA. What it does is it actually tracks my heart rate and heart rate variability, sleep, and things like that, and transfer to an app. So just imagine, if you have or a Fitbit device, which is so for health insurance, if your hospital can collect all this data. In fact, there was a case actually, sometime back in the US where, there was a guy who was watching, football match, sitting in his sofa with a beer. And then suddenly an ambulance came, and then the guys in the ambulance wanted him to be shifted immediately to the hospital. Okay. So this guy is saying, "I'm okay, I'm normal. Can't you see that I'm watching TV?" Then in the next 15 minutes, this guy had a heart attack, and they had to rush him to the hospital. Now the point is, because he was wearing a Fitbit kind of device, so the hospital was getting data about his heart rate and things like that. Now the hospital has millions of other records, so they can actually predict what will happen if this type of arrhythmia or whatever heart rate fluctuations that are happening. They can actually predict using analytics again, predict event, health event, right? So there are a lot of practical applications, of that in insurtech. For example, you can put sensors inside crop fields, which will measure the moisture, right? Or you can send drones, the drones with cameras. So the drones can fly over the crop and take pictures. Even a 1 millimeter size insect, it's visible to the camera. We already had satellite pictures, but then this is like very close. So it can calculate the moisture content. It can count the number of pods in a corn. We can calculate the yield. So we can use IoT devices. These are all called IoT devices, right? So they can actually find out the health of the crop and then accordingly decide the insurance premium. So why should all farmers pay the same insurance premium, irrespective of the quality of the crop, right? The farmer is taking care of the crop very well, then he can actually, pay less insurance. Similarly, for example, if I am taking care of my health properly, why should I, subsidize somebody else who's not, taking care of his health, right? So this level of customization is possible. In fact, I would say that insurtech is the only sector where a lot of these technologies can be incorporated, and it is being done. There are a lot of companies still doing it. For example, there's a company called Metro Mile. Okay, so in the US, so what it does is, you can insure only a trip. For example, you're going to, say a particular case or whatever, and then you can actually insure only that trip. You don't have to buy the entire insurance for the entire 1 year. Okay? Or you don't normally go out, but you go out, take Ola or Uber or something, and then only for that particular trip, you can probably insure. Right? Or there are, again, just like this ring, there are some telematic devices that can be put into your car, and then this will monitor the driver behavior. Is he a rash driver? Is he a proper driver? Etc. Based on that, the insurance premiums can be customized. Right? Good drivers will pay lower insurance premium. So these levels of sophisticated insurance policies are coming up in InsurTech. So this is what I said: insurance underwriting, pricing, micro insurance, and even claim analytics. For example, today there are a lot of problems with claims. Okay, especially private insurance companies. So they give you a particular amount as policy. Okay, any question here? Okay, so claim analytics is a very contentious issue in insurance. For example, private companies deny claims, etc. Now, if you put it on a blockchain, if the event happens and there is a proof, then automatically the money will be paid. Okay, so blockchain-based insurance claim analytics are going to remove all the disputes, unnecessary problems, frauds, and things like that. Then claim prevention. For example, instead of if you are monitoring the health of individuals, and then you can give advice and do a medical check and things like that. So you can even prevent the claim from happening. So this is what insurance companies are doing using technology. Instead of waiting for the event to happen and then pay the claim, you can actually even prevent claims actually. Then there are a lot of fraud prevention. So, for example, today there are insurance fraud specialists. Okay. So these guys actually, they do a lot of fraud by taking a vehicle and taking a photograph and then photoshopping it and then sending it to insurance companies, and they have people inside who can manipulate stuff and things like that. Now, once you do blockchain-based, AI-based, AI can find out whether the photograph is genuine or not genuine. All that is actually possible. So in some InsurTech is making sure that pricing is done properly. New models of insurance companies are coming up. Analytics can be better. You can prevent claims, and then you can even prevent fraud. Okay, so now RegTech, I talked to you about regulatory technology. Now you might think that technology is being used only by these fintech companies. No, even how will RBI handle so many companies? There are 2,200 fintech companies. Okay, so RBI has to manage all of that, right? So they have to collect reports, they have to do all these things. Okay, so this is something that very difficult to do manually. So there are a lot of things are being done to make sure that it makes it easy for RBI to find frauds. See, for example, every week the banks are sending millions of transaction details. Okay? So they keep sending a lot of data to the people, and then then finding out whether these people is there any fraudulent activity taking place. It's very difficult actually. So there is now technology, usually blockchain-based technologies, and AI. AI can look at the transaction pattern and immediately find a fraud. Okay, then automatically, for example, I was in Bombay once. I went to Shoppers Stop to buy some stuff. Then they came out, and then I forgot to buy one thing. So shoes, I think. Then I went back inside again, and then bought something again. Immediately, I got a message from the bank saying that is it you? Because you finish your shopping, and then there's one more debit in your card, right? So now it used to be a voice message. Now it's actually a message. It used to be a person calling from the fraud department to check. Now it's actually automated. You get a message. You say one, then you say I only bought it, right? So that kind of thing. So this kind of technology, fraud prevention, especially in cryptocurrency. Say people are under the wrong impression that cryptocurrencies can be used to do a lot of fraud. It's not true. In fact, cryptocurrency is traceable. Okay. So even though it's called cryptocurrencies, all the transactions are recorded on the blockchain, and then anyone can actually go, government can actually go and see, RBI can go and see, and then check all the transactions. It's possible. Okay, there are some coins like Dark Coin, Monero, etc., which are meant for they're called privacy coins. But then if people use that, and then it becomes difficult. Okay. So how can we know about these regulations at a glance? See, regulations is actually very complicated, okay? Because there are compliance officers. In fact, 30% of all banking staff, almost 30%, are involved in some regulatory work. Because the reason for this is this. In 2008, there was a huge global financial crisis. Okay? So because of that, okay, so is this type of technology which registrars and depositories use? Okay, so registrars and depositories don't really use RegTech. They just use programs that just record things, then query, etc. They don't really use RegTech. It's not yet. They just maintain records. In fact, the problem with that is, what if the server goes down? All the records are gone. Actually, see, this is the problem with centralized systems. Okay, centralized systems have a central point of failure. Okay, if one register goes down, somebody hacks, then it happens all in the banks. Actually, regularly banks are being hacked. Regularly, companies are being hacked, and people are losing data. Half the things you don't hear about, but it's a very common thing. Okay. So if you put it on a blockchain, the data, for example, medical records, any of these things are put on the blockchain, then you can't lose the data at all. It's impervious to any hacking. It's impossible to hack, almost impossible to hack. So these banks are using these software. Okay. Now, what these software companies do is there are specialized RegTech companies, like Fintech companies, specialized RegTech companies, who do machine learning and AI. See, machine learning and AI can find out any any anomaly in transactions. All transactions, like this, one transaction is standing out. Okay, or one person is buying all this stuff. Why is he buying? So where is he geographically located? Then you can take action. So this is a huge growth area, especially when everything is going online. Then the frauds also increase, right? Because all the offline frauds go online actually. Okay. So and banks, RBI and other central banks are finding it very difficult to handle the paperwork. So you can actually automate everything. Then they will be able to quickly come up with regulations, changes to the law, etc. That is why tech is a very important part thing. So all your EI, electronic ID, KYC, AML, anti-money laundering. These are actually, there are a lot of good technology companies in this area. Okay. Now, I'll just give you a list of, global fintech companies and financials based in China. I'll just rush through this because, I want to cover the technology part. And Finance, Stripe. I give you the PPT so you can actually look at all of them. Stripe is a US-based company. Coinbase is a cryptocurrency, which went public recently, listed in New York. Robinhood is a crypto exchange. Square is actually a merchant finance company. So just like credit cards, you can actually, they give you point of sale. So for example, mobile phone, you don't need that credit card machine. You can just use your phone with an attachment. Chime is a digital bank. Klarna is a BNPL company, buy now, pay later company based in Sweden. Sophie is a student finance company in the US. Credit Karma is the US-based finance company. TransferWise is Europe-based. They specialize in money transfer. Now it's actually, the name has been changed to just Wise, WISC. They're a digital bank. Root Insurance is, I told you about this adjustable, car insurance. That is actually is an insurtech company. Avant is actually a loan company. Cabbage, another example. Okay, so Betterment is actually a robo advisory company in the US. I talked about robo advisory sometime back. So this is a huge number of companies there in the world, but most of them are lending, wealth, payments, insurance. And Indian fintech companies, let me just give you a list. ATM, of course, ATM, right? So PhonePe, MobiKwik, PayU, they're all payment companies because payment is the most attractive thing in India as well. So is there a possibility of cryptocurrencies replacing currency system in the future? Okay, so this is, let me answer this. It's an interesting question. Okay, so will this happen? Yes. Okay, cryptocurrencies will become the norm, especially in countries where the government is dictatorial or very strong and the economy is doing very badly, South America and things like that. So that will happen there first. And then people will have choice. Okay. So anyway, the government themselves are converting their currencies into digital currencies. Okay. They're called CBDCs, central banking digital currency. Now, you will have the option to use multiple digital currencies for different purposes. So, and then they're not censorable. You can store your money without, say tomorrow, if, see, China is issuing CBDCs, okay, the central bank digital currency. Okay, so now, if whatever you buy, the government will come to know actually. So they have a record of everything. Okay. So if a government doesn't like you, they can just cut off the money supply completely. So you'll not get access to anything. So you can't buy, you can't travel, you can't pay rent. Just imagine what will happen, right? So that is the fear of the centralized digital currencies. Okay, but Bitcoin and other currencies, they are not centralized. They are not censorable. So nobody can prevent you from spending it, using it, having it, etc. So I think a lot of people, freedom line people, will start using it. The another question is it a good investment? Okay. Today, cryptocurrencies are very volatile. Okay. This is a very early days. The first cryptocurrency was born in the year 2008. Right? So we are, unlike real money, fiat money, which has been for hundreds of years. So you cannot compare and then say, okay, cryptocurrency is bad. Cryptocurrency is just getting started. Okay, so there are two uses for cryptocurrencies. One is as a medium of exchange, like fiat rupees, etc., or a store of value, which is investment. Okay, so as a store of value, I think cryptocurrencies are great if you just buy and then hold. Okay, because the supply is limited. So Bitcoin was the people who bought Bitcoin at like $2,000, $3,000. Now it's like 35. It went up to $60,000. Okay, so it'll reach probably $1 million, etc. Right. So there will be short-term fluctuations, but then as a store of value, it is a good idea because nobody can touch it, right? But as a medium of exchange or regular, we come to crypto trading later. So as a medium of exchange, for example, you buy something and then suppose you pay your hospital, airline ticket. You buy an airline ticket for 2,000 rupees using Bitcoin. Now because of the price fluctuation, it fell down. So the airline company will ask, boss, pay me another 2,000 rupees. So it's a problem. Okay. Because it's very volatile now, it is not serving a good purpose for transaction. Okay. But as investments, cryptocurrencies are great. Okay. Third thing is crypto trading. Okay. See, if you're an active trader and you love the volatility, for example, if it goes up, you make money. You go down, you make money. You make short selling. So if you're if you're an active trader, a very savvy trader, cryptocurrencies, you can make a lot of money because it keeps fluctuating a lot. So if you are able to predict the fluctuations, then you can actually make money. While the currency goes down, while it moves up. Because as a trader, you don't care if it's going up or going down. Both ways you can actually make money. Okay. But as an investor, long-term investor, you can just buy and hold, for long. So, but it's not for regular investors. It is risky, like all investments. It is risky. So, if you have earnings are low and then your situation is that where you cannot take too many risks, then don't do crypto. Because cryptocurrency is when you have the money and then you're willing to take the risk, right? Only then you should do it, right? Okay, so these are all Indian companies. Policy Bazaar is an insurtech company where you can actually go and buy. Shop around for auto insurance or general insurance or life insurance, then gives you comparison shopping. Okay, lending card is a small business loan company. You can see that you don't really have to go to the bank, right? So, okay, is there any questions? I can answer. Then we'll go to the technology. So we don't have too much time. So.
Any query, participants? So actually you are answering in between as well. So may possible that other queries got resolved.
Okay, so let's find out whether you've learned this. Okay. Okay. Robo advisory services is part of bank tech. True or false? Anybody can answer. Okay. So robo advisory services is actually part of. No, it's not true because it's not bank tech. It is actually invest tech. or wealth tech actually. Okay. Wealth tech. So we talked about wealth tech, right? So, right. Tech software can be used both by financial services companies as well as regulatory bodies. Okay, this is I didn't mention this, and let me explain this to you because the answer is yes, because RBI can use it and normal banks can also use it to handle regulatory stuff. IoT is widely used in insurtech. True or false? Yes, because I showed you the ring and then things like that. Sensors in agricultural fields and etc. So IoT is widely used in yeah, true. Yeah, a lot of people are getting it right. Okay, so machine learning can help banks to take the right credit decisions. Now, okay, I didn't cover it, but then I'll cover it now. So machine learning. The answer is true. I'll explain when we explain artificial intelligence, right? Okay, AI requires a lot of data to be useful. True, because without a lot of data and cleaned up data, it is very difficult to predict anything. Globally, digital banking licenses are given even to non-banks. I mentioned this actually. Hong Kong example I gave. True, because Hong Kong Telecom Authority has got a banking license. Okay, so Vodafone is into banking and things. Okay, so blockchains use smart contracts to settle insurance claims. True, because smart contracts can automatically do settlements. Okay. CBDCs are issued by central banks. True, because China is working on it. All other countries are working on it. Now, fintechs focusing on KYC and AML will be classified as bank tech companies. True or false? See, these are reg tech companies because they are acting on KYC and AML is reg tech. Okay, so reg tech companies, this is false. Okay, DeFi stands for distributed finance. True or false? It is actually decentralized finance, not distributed finance. Right? Okay. Now we have covered, the basics of all this now already. Okay. Now, okay. So now what we'll do is we'll go and look at the technology. So let's look at. Okay, any questions? I can answer a couple of minutes and then move on.
Yeah, participants, you are having the unmuting rights.
Okay, so what I'm going to cover is actually an extension of what we have covered. Okay, so I'll go into the details, but then we talk about big data technologies, blockchain from a technology standpoint, and I'll also look.
Excuse me, sir.
Sure, yeah.
Sir, regarding the question number 9,
Okay.
bank tech is KYC and AML. Is it reg tech or bank tech?
Which one?
Question number 9, sir.
What is the question? Just tell me what is the question.
Sir,
Reg
bank KYC and
yeah.
AML.
See, KYC is a regulatory requirement. See, banks may be using it, but banks use it because of the regulatory requirement. So that is why so that comes under reg tech. Okay. Banks can use reg tech software to make sure that anti-money laundering is taken care of, KYC, EID, and all that. But then this is actually reg tech, not bank tech.
Okay, sir. Okay, thank you, sir.
Okay, cool. Okay, so let's look at let me open. Okay, so you're able to see this technology foundations?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Good, great. Now, see, we covered in passing a lot of technologies. I want to spend some time on see, some of it we have covered, so I'll go fast on that. So big data, I told you, okay. it's called big data because it cannot be stored inside the conventional relational RDBMS software programs like SQL, etc. Because a lot of volume of data and it's unstructured. Okay? It is not in the tabular format. Like if, for example, you have school, college, student name, ID, phone number, marks, etc. That's it comfortably inside a table. But then tweets and videos and Facebook posts, Instagram photographs, etc. So it's very difficult to store all this. So you need a different type of databases for that. Now, these are the characteristics of big data. We talked about high volume, the high velocity. For example, traffic cameras can keep sending pictures by the second actually. Okay. Then the wide variety, video, audio, and all kinds of stuff, right? So, okay. Now, so what is the solution? Solution is to use new databases like MongoDB and MariaDB, etc. These are all called NoSQL databases. Okay. And there are specialized databases. For example, storing geographical data, we have something called PostgreSQL. So don't worry about the names, you don't have to know that. But just understand that the traditional forms of data storage, retrieval, etc., is not going to work from now on. You have to use big data tools. Okay, Hadoop and in fact, there are a lot of courses on big data, how to handle this data, etc. Because why is big data important? Because to use machine learning and AI, we need data. Okay, so for example, I want to know today in marketing, what are people thinking about my college? Okay, so if I can collect all this text data, people are posting in discussion forums, Facebook, Twitter, etc. We can take all that across multiple platforms and then analyze that and calculate the sentiment value, and then tell me immediately in a matter of minutes that people are talking positively or negatively, etc. So it is actually possible to do that today. There are tools available on the fly, dynamically. So, but how is it all possible? Because you have cloud computing. Because you have to collect all this data and it's stored in the cloud. Now, let me ask you this question: where is the cloud? So, when you say data is stored in the cloud, what do you mean by cloud? Is it somewhere in the sky? Anybody can answer? We normally say, it's cloud-made data. So, where is this data? Okay, it is in server farms. Okay. So, so what does it actually mean? Server farms. They are servers. See, cloud computing. Actually, the word cloud, I'll tell you how this word cloud came up. Okay. Some data center, non-device. It's not stored in your device, but it's stored elsewhere. Okay. So say the word cloud came because people were drawing these circuit diagrams earlier. Okay, they used to put one small dabba for your computer and then a big dabba for the server, etc. And the internet was shown as a cloud. Okay, so in the diagrams. Okay, so that's how cloud computing actually got its name. Okay, so they are physical data servers sitting in Google's offices and Apple's offices, etc. So the word cloud, you can easily replace the word cloud with internet. Okay, so it's basically okay, I'm not saying sure just 149 data centers. That would be much. Okay, so cloud computing is actually using the internet based devices for storage. For example, Amazon Web Services and Microsoft Azure, Google, everything. So let me explain, the concept of cloud computing. See, for example, you have these malls. Okay, so you have these, shopping malls. Okay, so suppose I want to sell, say, Van Heusen shirts or Louis Philippe shirts. Instead of setting up a shop on the main road, Station Road, or whatever, right? Instead of that, if I go to the mall and set up a shop, I have a lot of advantages. For example, I don't have to worry about the AC because the mall takes up the AC. I don't have to worry about building toilets because every floor has got toilets. Then also a lot of people are anyway coming to the mall, so some of them may actually walk in. Okay, I've got footfall. I don't have to worry about security because the mall security is there. Okay, so all I have to do is just pay rent, for AC and security this much, and that kind of. Okay, so this is the advantage of sharing the infrastructure. Okay, so what cloud computing is doing is actually, instead of you setting up your own server and managing it, and something goes wrong, replacing it, etc., you give this to a small kind of guy. Okay, he's actually AWS. So AWS will actually take a big server and apportion a small portion and give it to you to host your own website or to store your own data. So it was seen as only a storage thing for a long time. Okay, so instead of, I don't have storage space, instead of keeping on buying new computers to store, etc. So it makes sense to store it on the cloud or on a server, on a remote server run by some other company. Okay, and pay a small fee for that actually. So that's what cloud. In fact, your entire Gmail runs on that, right? All your mails are not in your mailbox; it's actually in the cloud, in the server, in some US-based data center. Okay, so cloud computing is actually sharing the infrastructure. And there are different types of services they offer, not just storage. They offer you some software. So, for example, I want to create an online course. I can take Moodle, which is the software for creating this LMS, actually learning management system. I can go to AWS and create put my own instance of LMS, and then in fact AWS has Moodle software there. Okay, so you can just upload your courses, and then people can see it and enjoy it, right? So it is not just storage; it is also giving software services. In fact, today the cloud computing services gives you machine learning and AI. So for example, I can take the data, put it in the AWS, use the AI machine learning software in the cloud, and then create models and deploy them in the cloud. Okay, so you don't even need a physical office anymore. You can sit in a coffee day restaurant and do the whole thing. So cloud computing offers you a lot of other services as well, not just the storage. Okay. Now, in fact, these services can be classified as like this, infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, and software as a service. This software as a service. So what Gmail is giving you is actually all the three, right? So you don't have to have a space. You don't have to worry about operating system, etc. So the lot of Zoho, for example, gives you a software as a service. In fact, a lot of software programs that we do use today is actually as a service, rent instead of owning, actually. That's really the idea. Okay, platform, it gives you the operating system. Infrastructure as a service gives you the entire, physical infrastructure and things like that. These are the different levels of cloud computing. Depending on if you're an ordinary customer, you'll probably use SaaS. But if you're the Indian Army and then you want to use AWS, you'll probably use IaaS because you want your own security, you want your own data center, but managed by AWS. Security is very important, right? So that is all possible. So type of clouds. Okay, so the public cloud is what we normally use, Gmail, etc. Public cloud. Private cloud is actually, see, for example, we talked about Indian Army. Say, for example, Indian Army wants to do some recruitment, and they've chosen the second floor of the mall, say Indore, for example. Okay. So what do? They can put their own security guards at the end of the floors and then cordon off the entire floor completely. Okay. So it is actually a private, so data center. Okay, your data center can be, see, for example, the data of Indian citizens has to sit only in India, right? You cannot store elsewhere. So the government requires Facebook, Gmail, etc., to store its data only inside the country for obvious reasons, right? So what cloud computing? So some are public clouds, some are private clouds, their own data centers, and hybrid clouds where you can actually take a combination of both private and public. So don't worry about it. Just know this. There are three types of things. Okay, and who are the major cloud service providers? There are actually hundreds, but these are the major ones. The majority, 60-70% of the market is controlled by AWS, Amazon Web Services, and then GCP is Google Cloud Platform. MS Azure is Microsoft Azure. So what is great about these platforms is that they just don't give you space; they also give you computing services. Actually, okay. So this is okay. Example of a hybrid cloud is for the army creating a second floor cordoned off within a public cloud. Okay, so that is actually an example of hybrid cloud. Okay, so so you can create a private virtual network within the public network. That's a hybrid thing. Okay. Private is totally private. You have your own data center and then do it. So, okay. So you understood the hybrid cloud? There was a question here. So private cloud is actually your own data center. Public cloud is all data stored elsewhere. Hybrid cloud is in the public cloud, you carve out a private space for you with your own security and checks and balances. That is called hybrid. Okay, so Internet of Things. I told you about Internet of Things. See, this is interesting because what makes anything a smart thing? Okay, what is the difference between a normal phone, feature phone, and a smartphone? Smartphone is actually an internet IoT device because it can do two things. One, it can take inputs or it can sense. For example, GPS in your phone can actually sense where it is right now. Okay, and then sense the location and then transmit that to the server. Second thing is it can actually is connected to the internet, to any network. So that is called an IoT. Okay, so I gave the example of a ring, a phone, and sensors inside agricultural fields. So they're all Internet of Things. In fact, industry, if, for example, you're sending a package. Okay, you're sending a vaccine, from one place to another place, and every vaccine box you can put an IoT, RFID tag, RFID tag, or even a chemical signature. Okay, so you can actually sense that. So any point in time, what the software does is it creates what is known as a digital twin. Okay. So in a dashboard somewhere in Delhi, you can sit and then watch, the movement of this package from one city to another city to, and your sensor can tell you whether it was dropped or it was changed or it was manhandled, it was removed or replaced, etc. Because you can track at a unit level everything. In fact, the global supply chains are going to change because of IoT, blockchain, and AI. Okay, all combining together. So you can actually, track everything. Okay, so that is the advantage of Internet. For example, a farmer knows how much water is there in the field. Okay, based on that, he can accurately provide water. Okay, if he knows that there's a pest attack, he'll immediately come to know because of the IoT. So and insurance company will get informed, or so you can actually put sensors everywhere and get this data. For example, people are talking about your fridge, okay, at home. Everything is, see, today the sensors are becoming very cheap. Okay, so I can put a sensor in your shirt, and then you're walking to a mall. The store will immediately know that you can identify the tag and then say, boss, you bought this shirt 7 years ago. Why don't you just change it? I can send you a message like that. Okay, so you can, a lot of things that, of course, a lot of privacy concerns here. Okay. But then there's a price for progress, right? So privacy is lost. There are facial recognition things, face readers and things like that. So IoT devices are going to be everywhere. The projection is that it will be a several $1 billion business because the prices are coming down. So you can put devices everywhere. Okay, so and track things. Now, I was talking about your fridge. So in the fridge, for example, your milk carton has a RFID tag, and then the fridge is an IoT device. So the fridge can find out that the milk is expiring tomorrow, and then order a replacement in Amazon on its own. So we're talking about again, for example, you're leaving the office, and then you can actually, using your phone, you can switch on the AC inside the room, and then you can switch on the heater. So by the time the water will be hot when you are at home, after driving for half an hour, and so on. You can switch on the cooker so that the cooked meal will be ready and so on. So this is not science fiction. It is actually possible today. Technologies exist. Okay, so all these things are going to happen because of the IoT devices. Okay. So now you have IoT, Internet of Things, and you have industrial IoT. For example, Amazon uses a lot of IoT devices in the current warehouses, etc. IoE is Internet of Everything. Okay, now biohackers, I'm a biohacker. People like, for example, the people are injecting a small chip in between your, for example, your thumb and your index finger. This space is there, right? So people are, in for example, Sweden, a lot of people have done this kind of thing. Yeah. So when you buy things, instead of credit card, you just show your hand, right? And in fact, people are talking about a phone that you say your hand actually. Okay. So and there are a lot of wearable devices. For example, your port can have a IoT device. And in defense applications are huge actually. Okay. So people are talking about smart materials for clothes as well. Okay. Okay. So okay. So this income source for government from the fintech or blockchain transactions. Okay. Now this is an important question, so I want to answer this properly. Okay. So his question was for all the other participants. Okay, how will the government make money? Okay, if you start using blockchain. Okay, so the idea is that why should the government make money in the first place? Okay, but the government needs money to provide you services, right? Yeah, so that's why we pay taxes. Okay, so tax payments can be paid on a blockchain, and the government will know exactly how the money is getting used. For example, if all expenses are put on a blockchain, already cryptocurrencies are transforming the charity business. For example, if you have a charity company, okay, non-government organization, suppose I want to give money. Suppose I give money in cryptocurrencies, I will know exactly what this money is being used for. Is it reaching the final beneficiary who were originally intended? Okay. Now today we don't know, right? You give the money and then we don't know what this government is doing or other private organization, charity is doing, whether he is actually stealing money or whether he's reaching. We have no idea. That's why we don't want to give to anybody. Okay. So instead of trusting people, if it is on a blockchain, this is called programmable money. Okay. So if it's on a blockchain, the government takes money from you as a fee or as for the public services or as a taxation, whatever is the payment. Okay. Vehicle tax, etc. So all these tax money, if it's put on the blockchain, we'll know exactly how much of that is being used for laying roads, how much of that is being used for this particular purpose. So cheating is impossible with blockchain. Okay. So that is a big problem for central agencies who have been enjoying a lot of privacy and then things like that. Right? So and then the question is like, why does the government need money? Government needs money for providing services for you, for which you're paying taxes. Okay, so the government will also know who's paid tax, not paid tax, etc. Again, right? So this becomes open book. Everything is transparent. So I think that is much better than government or anybody else making money. Right? So this technology is making trust redundant. You don't have to trust somebody to do things for you. You can actually see on the blockchain whether it's actually done or not. So you can do business with a Chinese supplier. You can do business with a supplier as a company because you can you're sure that the payment will be made only if certain conditions are met, and nobody can interfere. So it's immutable. So that's really the idea of the total piece. And this is very scary for a lot of central controlling organizations. They want secrecy. They spend money without you knowing, etc. So there will be no censorship. There will be no, everything is free. Okay? So that's really the idea behind it. So this is an utopia actually. This is not going to happen overnight. Maybe never. But then we will go towards transparency and much better. That's what technology is going to transfer. Okay, so Internet of everything. Say when I talk about Internet of everything, I'm talking about chips inside you. You already have a pacemaker inside. You have joints made up with this thing. I can put a nanoparticle inside your body and go and find out where the heart a block is happening, and then we can repair it, etc. I can see this. So this is what is going to happen with Internet of everything. So your dress can have sensors. For your fire engine, there are something called technical textiles. For example, in University of California, Berkeley, somebody has developed a circuit board which can be washed. It can be put in a washing machine several times, and it will still conduct the circuit, and then you can actually perform certain functions. Your jacket can make you hotter, colder, and then measure the temperature, send it to somebody. All those kind of things actually is possible. So in fact, the fashion industry is actually changing completely. Your shoes can measure the number of which already is possible. measure the number of calories you're spending, and then suggest what to eat accordingly. And you can take a photograph of a food and calculate how many calories does it have, with any harmful ingredients, etc. So a lot of things are actually possible because of this Internet of Things. Okay, so the market for Internet of Things is huge, not just in financial services, everywhere. Okay, so we now come to data science, which is the holy grail. So I will not spend too much time. Let's I know we've been talking about this for a long time now. So let me just take minutes. If you have questions, of course, I'll be very glad to answer. Okay. But what is data science, data analytics, business analytics? Are all same. Okay. So it's called by different names because people come from different points. For example, MBA types will call it business analytics because you're analyzing data for business. Data analytics is actually a statistical lineage, for example. Okay. So a lot of these statistical people in the statistics area, they call it data analytics. But data science is from the IT side. So if you're like me, then you'll say, okay, data science is actually there's no need to call it data science. You don't say physics science or chemistry science, right? Why are you calling it data science? Okay. But somehow this data science name stuck. So they're all the same. So machine learning, AI, data science, data analytics, business analytics, so there's no confusion there. Okay. So this is what I was talking to you. Okay. So this is something that you will actually see everywhere. Okay. If you search on the internet, you will find similar type of diagrams. Okay. So one is statistics, then coding or software or hacking skills, domain and knowledge. So if you want to be a good data scientist, you need to have all these three things. Okay. Statistics we already know because you have studied. Okay. But what we don't know is how to automate the statistics, okay, using IT, because you can't manually calculate with million data points. Suppose you have an Excel sheet with 10,000 rows and 30,000 columns. How are you going to find the Excel makers? We can't do it using Excel because it will take for us to process. Okay. And the data science is a combination of all these things. So you need to understand that statistics we already know the principles. So the missing domain also, if you're a marketing or a finance, how the bank loan works, how credit works, etc. But you don't know this coding business. Okay. Now the coding business actually, or learning how the software programs work, how to use a language like Python to use the statistics. So somehow I see a lot of programs being done by statistical people saying that they're doing machine learning. Okay. So I always have a problem with that because, this is what is new in machine learning. What is new in machine learning is you're automating the statistical using software. That is it. So you can do statistics at scale in machine learning. Okay. So if somebody asks you the difference between machine learning and so even this thing you need to understand. Okay, machine learning in AI is also a very confusing thing. So let me just show you that. Okay, so I don't have that picture. Okay, so this is the hierarchy. Okay, so artificial intelligence is the whole thing. Machine learning is a sub-portion of a subset of artificial intelligence. Okay, so then deep learning is actually a subset of machine learning. Okay. So remember this. We'll come back to this later. Okay. So we're talking about data science, analytics, etc. So what is machine learning and AI? Okay. So AI is the new electricity. It will transform every industry and create. See, this is what we've been saying about electricity. See, today you don't appreciate the value of electricity because if the power goes, then everything will stop. Okay. And now, only then you'll come to know because you're taking this electricity for granted because it's there everywhere, ubiquitous. Right? So, AI will become like that. See, you're already using AI. When you type a message, Google suggesting in the next word, Alexa, play me this particular song. So all that is actually, AI. AI is already there. Your spam filter. It automatically Google decides which is spam, which is promotion, which is regular inbox mail. All that is actually using AI. Whenever you search in Google something, it suggests alternatives, etc. They're all AI actually. The AI is already there. So it's not like AI is going to come and change everything. It will change everything in the background even without you knowing it. Okay. So now there are two types of artificial intelligence. Something you should know. Okay. One is called the artificial general intelligence. This is the movie, Chitti, Rajinikanth thing, right? So it can do anything that human beings can do. That's called artificial general intelligence. It's like global intelligence. It can do it. It can read faster. It can do things faster. It can actually think on its own, and then it can have sentience and things like that. Now, fortunately, we have not reached this stage yet. Scientists are saying it will take about 20 to 30 years for us at least. At least 2040. Beyond that. So when we reach that point, it will be called singularity. So singularity is the stage where the machines become sentient, meaning machines will become like human. So fortunately, that's still far away. Now what we have now is called artificial narrow intelligence or artificial specific intelligence. Okay. So we can automate certain processes. For example, if you want to identify, a traffic camera can identify any vehicle at any angle. It can zoom and find out the number and then send you a ticket. All that is actually possible. So what we are doing right now is artificial narrow intelligence. So people are worried about. So what will happen if machines become like human beings? Okay. So there are two theories. Okay. One is there are two groups actually. People like Elon Musk, then the physicist who died, sometime back. The Stephen Hawking. So those people are saying that we should just listen carefully. Elon Musk and Stephen Hawking were saying that we should reduce the spending on AI and to slow down AI development. Okay. Because he's scared that once you cross a particular limit, we don't know what will happen, which might take over the world. It is actually possible. I'm not saying it. Elon Musk is saying it. Okay. He's not an idiot, right? So he's scared. Saying that actually. Now there are people like Facebook, Mark Zuckerberg, and other people are saying no. Actually, AI nothing will be feared. You will of course lose jobs, but the new jobs will be created, etc. So there's nothing to be worried about. Okay. So we don't know what will actually happen, but it is going to happen in our lifetime actually for a lot of people. Okay. So you need to understand where it's going. It is growing exponentially. Okay. So there are AI bots can speak natural language. It can read million articles and summarize it. It can do sentiment analysis. It can do identify any vehicle, person, facial recognition. For example, China, policemen wear this special, glasses. It looks like a normal, sunglasses. You can identify people in the crowd, compare the face with the criminal database, and then identify people. You can catch them. So there are a lot of possibility of this being misused, and what will happen when people don't have jobs? So all this AI is taking over all industries, and what will people do, right? So it will free you. But then, a lot of people tell me that, if automatic, self-driving taxis come, what will happen to the taxi driver? He will lose his job. But then you can always say, no, just become a machine learning engineer, man. But it's not possible for him to become a machine learning engineer, right? So the problem is artificial intelligence will make you lose a lot of jobs, create new jobs, but the same guys won't be able to get those jobs. So this is a big problem. We don't have a solution today. The governments are saying, let's give what is known as an UBI, universal basic income. Okay. So America is talking about giving money. Okay. UK is already doing it. But then countries like India, Latin America, what will you do? Government can't give you money, right? So we don't have a job, right? So this is the problem. So I'm saying that, in the transition period, for example, people right now in schools, you have these Gen Z, people below 20. So I think they will study, artificial intelligence, machine learning, etc. in school. CBSE is talking about introducing machine learning and AI in school, 11th standard. So they will all be ready. But then people, millennials who are about 20 years to 40 years now, and Generation X, which is like, about 50 years, and then, boomers like 55, 60 years, they all are going to have a problem. So I don't know, So I think that, you should just understand technology and be on the right side of technology, not on the wrong side of technology. Don't become a victim. But it's not going away anywhere. So it is like, people used to say technology is knocking on the door. No, it is come inside and locked it from inside, and then, you are like, You just need to enjoy the. Actually, so this is how AI is going to affect you. So this is not bad news, but I think that this is a wake up call. Okay, all industries are going to go machine learning AI way. So okay, so what are these machine learning algorithms? Okay, so there's something called this is a bit technical, but I'll explain this bit so that you understand this one application. Then you're okay. So we have supervised learning, unsupervised learning, and reinforcement learning. So let me explain what is supervised learning. See, listen carefully. This is important. Okay. Suppose you're a bank. Let me give you a banking example. Okay. So so first I'll give you an example which is generic. Okay. So you take 1,000 pictures of dogs. Okay. Different types of dogs. Okay. Small dogs, big dogs, different colors, etc. You just label them as dogs. Okay. Now show 1,000 pictures of dogs, different types of dogs, to a computer. Okay. Now the computer understands, okay, there are so many variations available in a dog, but then they're all called dogs. This is labeled. Okay, that's why we call it supervised learning. Okay. Then you take 1,000 pictures of cats, okay, different types of cats, all labeled as cat. Each picture is labeled as cat. Now, after you show 1,000 pictures of this and 1,000 pictures of that, the computer now has understood, what a dog looks like and what a cat looks like. Okay. We say the computer has actually learned, meaning machine has learned. Okay. This is the machine learning thing. Okay. When we say machine learning, we're talking about machine learning from the examples that you are giving to the machine. That's why it's called machine learning. Okay. So a machine learning algorithm actually means that the computer looks at, see, there is another type of programming which we are all used to. You write a software program and then the computer executes it. That is a traditional computer programming. Now, AI is completely different. Okay, so we are not, writing a program to identify the cat and dog, because it is very difficult to write a program for that. Okay, so instead of that, we are just giving examples. Okay, so we give examples, of this, different instances of cat, different instances of dog, etc. Now the computer learns from these examples and creates a model. Okay. So what is this model? Model is basically a software program which is developed based on the examples. So the computer writes its own program based on the example. You understand? So this is very important. Okay. So so if somebody asks you, what is the big deal about the AI, okay, or machine learning? You have to tell them, because it is very different from the original computer programming. See, we learned computer programming and then we wrote step-by-step instructions to the computer so that the computer will execute something. Okay. See, let me give you an example. See, another example. Suppose you want to learn how to make a good biryani. Now, somebody gives you a recipe, which is like a program, right? But then you make the biryani, it doesn't come out like the chef is making. Okay. Now, Kana Kadana, you've seen this program 1,000 times. How does he do it? Okay. So you go and say, boss, don't give me instructions. Let me come and do biryani with you. Okay. So you go to the chef and then, watch him, perform all the operations. He takes onions and fries it, and how much oil is pouring, what oil is using, what, spices he is using, and how long. So you observe it carefully by example. You learn by example. Right? So you cook along with him for several days, and then later, when you are on your own, you can actually cook, because you have learned everything intuitively. He has not given you a program or recipe, etc. Because recipes are one other. It never comes like that. Right? Recipe, recipe is a generic thing, right? So step by step method. But then how much ingredient to add and what stage? And see, when they say the onion is golden brown, the golden brown for you is different from golden brown for me. Okay. So the best way to learn is by learning by example. Okay. So that's what the computer machine learning is actually. What machine learning does is actually, you're not programming the machine, right? Like the earlier days, you are showing examples. Okay. So the machine learns from the examples, develops the model, okay, uses the model to differentiate between the dog and the cat. So after the machine has learned now, you take a new picture without a label. Okay. So it is either a dog picture or a cat picture, but it doesn't say any label. So a computer can't read the label. Okay. Then you ask the computer, tell me, computer G, whether it's cat or a dog. Okay. So the computer now will be able to predict, what is the label for this particular picture. Okay. That's what we call as predictive analytics actually. So this, is very simple actually. Predictive analytics or any analytics for that matter is that, you give the computer enough data, which is examples. Okay. If, for example, I can give in the last 10 years student marks in maths or statistics, okay, to the computer, okay, and then give a new student thing and then, evaluate the paper, it will be able to predict what will be the mark for this guy, even though it is not specifically studied. So let me give you an example for this in the banking sector, then you will understand this completely. Okay. So if you understand this, then you understood machine learning reasonably well. Okay. So for example, I'm HDFC Bank. Okay. I'm running a housing loan business. Okay. I've got say 1 lakh customers, in my housing loan portfolio. So now in this 1 lakh customers, 80,000 customers are good customers. They're paying regularly the money back, etc. EMIs, no default. Okay. Then we have these are good customers, right? So we call them good customers who are paying regularly. Then you have 20,000 customers who are erratic, they're not paying regularly. Let's call it bad customer. Okay. So we have two classes, good customer, bad customer. Okay. Now I take the application forms which people filled in when they came for the thing. So I have 1 lakh application forms, loan application forms. So I take that and then take this 80,000 good applications and in the application form I'll write label as good. And then just like the dog cat example. Okay. So I take this 80,000, good customers and then feed it to the computer. Okay. Now the computer knows how a good customer looks like. Where is he work, married, not married, how many years of work experience, all that information is there in the application. Okay. Entire Janam Patri, right? So 20,000 customers are bad customers. So I label them as bad and then feed it to the computer. Now the magic happens. Okay. Now the computer actually learned, how a good customer looks like, how a bad customer. And then it has developed a model, okay, to differentiate. Apne aap, without you writing a specific program. Based on the examples, it is understood and created a program. Okay. Now it's written a program, by itself. Okay. Now, if a new customer comes to the bank, we know nothing about this customer. We ask him to fill up a form. Okay. Now you have to decide whether to give a loan or not to this guy. So normally, what will you do? You will take the application, calculate the ratios, ask him to give proof of repayment from other banks he has taken, all that, right? So in this case, we are not going to do all that. Okay. We just ask the computer to classify this new application form either as a good or a bad customer based on the data it already has. Okay. So when he gives a new application form, in matter of seconds, the computer can tell you, was he a good customer, give him the loan. By the bad customer, don't give them. Okay. So this is how all these online instant loans kind of thing work actually. So you're on the Amazon page and you're buying a washing machine and then you click on the button next to it for credit. And then the machine can immediately tell you in a matter of seconds whether loan be given to you or not given to you. Okay. Now this is this changes completely everything. No credit officers, no office staff, no nothing. You don't need so many people in the bank. Kind of thing. And the machine learning predictions are much more accurate than human being. No influence, nothing, no under the hand dealing. Everything is transparent. Everything is machine. Okay. So this is a good example of how machine learning is used. So I can give you hundreds of examples. We don't have time, but you can understand how this works actually. Similarly, unsupervised learning is without label it can learn, and reinforcement learning is how robots can actually function, defeat chess players and things like that. So I think this gives you an introduction. I'm sure there is another session on machine learning in AI for you, so you will understand this much better. So I have given all this here. The thing. Okay. So how to? If you have any questions, let me. Deep learning is actually copying the brain's way of learning. You have neurons inside billions of neurons. So we have copied that and created a neural network. And this is a sub portion of machine learning. You need a detailed session on this for me to explain this whole thing. Okay. So what I can tell you in detail in deep learning is that it can actually handle language. For example, two things it can do. Computer vision. It can look at a picture and then identify what insect it is. Okay. And then tell the insurance company, boss, this is a pest infected field. or natural language. For example, Alexa, play me this particular song. It understands what you're saying and it comes back with the answer, right? So NLU stands for natural language understanding and natural language generation. In fact, it can generate speech on its own, right? So this is all applications of deep learning in the banking. Chatbots is another example where it can answer questions for you. I think blockchain we have covered mostly, right? So let me just summarize the blockchain thing. See, the internet of value. For the first time, today the internet, you can transfer only information. You cannot transfer value. Blockchain, you can actually transfer money value. Okay, it is distributed. It is immutable. It can't be changed. It's practically unhackable. You can do a lot of transactions, and you can use smart contracts to automatically make payments, etc. Another important point before we close, we need to understand that these individual technologies are scary by themselves, right? But then they're all combining now. Okay, there's a convergence of emerging technologies. Okay, you can manage a supply chain on a blockchain using AI and IoT devices. Okay, so this is making all industries, worry about how exponential growth this is going to create. Okay, this is going to be a huge thing, and we need to actually know how, okay. So the way we, okay. So look at technology use. Okay, I saw this comment. So it is changing the way you're looking at technology, because the technology is going to be integral part of our life. Okay? So just like you're able to read and write, you should be able to be to write a program. Okay, you should be able to understand technology. So it becomes that kind of. So you're already using technology as a user. You don't know what is happening behind the scene. But then if you're in an industry, then you should. It's going to change everything. So any questions?
Participants?
Yeah, any questions, comments, piece of advice, whatever. Anything is fine. I know when we talked about technology, there was a pin drop silence. I think, I know whether it's, it's scary, it is going.
So people are, participants are already answering that everything is resolved during these sessions.
Okay, sure. No, okay. So there are any questions, and you can probably share my email ID, and then so I'll be happy to questions.
Shalini ma'am want to ask something. Ma'am, you can.
Sure. Yeah.
Sir, this is Shalini again.
Yeah, please.
Sir, I just, I mean, this is a concern that I have in my mind. It is like, once, all of us have shifted to this virtual session or remote learning or whatever, most of us have faced the problem of, this you call technology or internet connection or, so many things. I mean, the more and more we rely on such things, to what extent our infrastructure can support this machine learning or this artificial intelligence that you're talking? I mean, how can India catch up with the change that is happening in the technology?
Okay, so let me explain. So when the automobile was first invented, right, several years ago. Okay, so it was called a horseless carriage. Because the earlier carriages are horse-drawn carriages. Okay. So nobody said automobile because you needed a cognitive bridge to go to the next level. So people used to call it horseless carriage. And so the rules of the government at that point in time was, when the car is coming, there should be a man holding a light and a bell, and then keep doing this. Car is coming, an automobile is coming. Okay. So that is how the first car was introduced. So we are in that stage in technology. Okay. So today's car is completely different, right? So you don't. So when the airplane was launched, then there was accidents, and So this has happened across the first surgery, and then whenever So people used to actually take a thing and then break open your head and then remove a portion of the brain. That was called brain surgery. earlier, right? Now today you have sophisticated instruments to do that, etc. So what we're really saying is this is the beginning of the beginning of the beginning of technology, right? So we will have these, minor issues. Just imagine, you want to address 200 people in different locations at the same time. So how much money and how much travel and how much effort you need to actually, spend, right? So in fact, I've done corporate training programs now in the last few months, several. The latest supply chain, blockchain supply chain thing for Hyundai. So those guys are saying, otherwise they'll spend about 30-40 lakhs, for a training program. So call everyone to Chennai and then, put the trainer in a, hotel and then, all that is the same benefit actually. Okay. So even though there are minor issues, technology will develop, etc. So I think this is amazing. Just imagine email. Without email, you have to go and, send a post and how do you communicate? So we already are, so compared to the benefits, it's a cost benefit thing, right? So compared to the benefits, the costs are minimal. Okay? And it is allowing a lot of people for example, look at what Baiju is doing or a lot of other guys are doing, on academy, etc. So without, faculty, without so education is getting transformed. I think there are problems, and don't worry about India. Okay, so India is a very resilient country. So people will find out jugaad. So famous for making do with minimal stuff, right? So people are the missed call thing was invented in India. Okay, nobody had this idea about missed call. Okay, we created that actually. So India, if at all any country is going to do well, India is going to do well actually. Because one, the population becoming younger and younger. The next 20 years, you'll find that 60-70% of the population is going to be in the 20s. Okay, so you don't have to. They're like born digital. They can they understand all of that. So India, not a problem. We can adjust. We can find opportunities. So I'm not worried about India. Infrastructure, etc. And infrastructure is growing. Yeah? Anywhere you go, internet connection. All railway stations are. Even remote railway station, Google is providing internet connectivity. Okay, free. All airports are free. So all restaurants will have free Wi-Fi. Auto rickshaw may, Ola may, you have free internet connection, right? So this is going to change. The cost will come down. So practically free over there. So then all these minor problems, not a problem actually. See, today I was trying to log in, and there was a problem. I could log in, and it got sorted out itself. But otherwise, I think we don't have to worry about this. So if you have to worry about people who are older, not open, they're going to find it very difficult. Because for them, see, I bought a bottle of olive oil sometime back on Amazon. On the shop, nuts and spices shop is $1,200. On Amazon, it's $800. I never looked at the price, but then I suddenly saw the thing. There's so much difference here. Online may be cheap actually. So life will, if you are online, then your cost of living will come down, your health will improve. All that. Okay, there are minor problems like you don't get physical activity. You go and take a walk and compensate, right? Okay, so I think there's nothing to really worry about. If anybody has questions, so we can probably add one more. Otherwise, we will probably close, right? My LinkedIn ID is there actually. So past 10 p.m. So maybe Neha can probably communicate that. Right? Yeah, there was a question.
People are also asking about the PDF, the content which you had shared. Will it be possible for you to share that content with us?
Yeah. I sent that to you. You can mail it.
Sure, sir. We will.
Anyway, I'm not worried about giving content because the content keeps changing so fast.
Right.
That's it. Yeah.
There is another question from Bharat.
What controls? What are the question? What controls?
Who controls and manages public cloud?
Okay, so these are all given by public club. This is not some government club or anything like that. So it is actually private companies like Amazon. So it's public because of it is shared. Infrastructure is shared with other people. That's why it's called public. Otherwise, it's nothing known as public. The public sector. It's all given only by the existing cloud providers. Okay, so all good. Okay, P2P lending area, yeah, all that, can be. So you can, send me a mail so I can, handle that. So if anybody else has this, any questions, whatever, you can share that. My email, you can share my email ID. It's austinmax@gmail.com. I can probably, put that on that. So this is my, email. I mean, so you can probably share it. I didn't go to public. Share is. So, you can actually,
So did you share your mail ID?
Yeah, I've done that.
Yes. So I'll be sharing your link for LinkedIn as well. Just people are asking.
LinkedIn. Okay, so I can, one second, let me just
Sure.
open my LinkedIn. And then okay, simple. LinkedIn, this is my LinkedIn profile. So,
Right, sir.
okay, cool. So you can, send messages, whatever. You have questions later. I'm sure at the end of the program, people will have, guys say something and somebody else will say something else. We have this complex, right? So you can ask post program as well. Right then. Anything else? So we can close.
Anything else? Any other questions, participants? As such, sir, you had covered many things regarding this fintech concept, because we learned that it is not only finance. Basically, fintech is a kind of a fuel which is driving finance somewhere. And nowadays, everyone need to get into this to have the better position or to secure their future as well. So this is something which is getting mandatory for everyone to get into this financial services. So that was wonderful. I would like to call our co-coordinator, Dr. Kalicharan Modak sir, to give a brief glimpse of the whole day sessions and to extend the vote of thanks to our resource person, Mr. Austin Max. Over to you, Kali sir.
Yeah, thank you so much, Neha ma'am. It's an honor to present a vote of thanks to Austin sir, and the way sir started today's session, the second session of the day, in which sir just started with a small quiz and just given a highlight regarding what is the current trend and the practices which is happening all across the globe. So n number of things which is being said by sir. Definitely, sir, the knowledge which you have shared with all of us will definitely enlighten all of us. And as a part of faculty member and business school, we will be able to use the knowledge which is being shared by you, like wealth tech, insure tech, health tech, reg tech. So n number of things which is probably taking place all across the globe. So the examples which you have quoted, very practical, and definitely this particular skill set which we learn today we can use in our classroom, so that there will be a transformation in the classroom. We can teach those concepts to our students practically. So thank you so much, sir, for enlightening us with your word of wisdom and providing us the deep insight regarding fintech and the changes which is happening in this particular industry. So thank you so much for your valuable time, and from bottom of my heart I would like to thank you on behalf of entire IBMR IPS family. So thank you so much, sir.
Thank you. It was a pleasure. And then, it's a good audience, asked a lot of questions. I wish everybody the very best. Special thanks to, Neha and Dr. as well.
Thank you, sir. And
Would
thank
be
you,
associated.
participants too. Right.
Okay.
So herein we are towards the end of the sessions, end of the day, right? So that's all for the day. Tomorrow we'll be meeting again at 9:30 a.m. sharp with few more insights about this fintech concept, with agri-tech concepts, with the security regulations, the artificial intelligence. A few of the part is already being covered by sir.
I just gave you the introduction. So
Yes, yes.
sure there'll be
And
more.
with the hope, the extension of this we'll be going to learn in the third session of our this complete FDP of tomorrow's FDP sessions, right? So see you all tomorrow morning 9:30 a.m. We'll be going to start with the sessions. So please be login. Try to log in on time by 9:20, 9:25. That will be perfectly fine. So do join. See you tomorrow. That's all for the day. Thank you all. Thank you, sir. Once again, thank you, participants.
Thank you. Bye. Cheers.
Bye, sir. Bye. Thanks.